An assault on democracy. That's how many leaders across the world have described the scenes of mayhem that unfolded in Brazil's capital, Brasilia, on Sunday as the former president Jair Bolsonaro's supporters ran riot in the city. This because, just like Trump supporters, they were unable to accept the defeat of their leader in last year's elections and the fact that Lula da Silva is the next president, a president who's come back to power after a long time. They are unwilling to accept these results. They had also asked the army to step in and prevent Lula da Silva from in fact taking over or his swearing in taking place as well. After all that was over, the supporters of Jair Bolsonaro ran a rampage in Brasilia, ugly scenes emerging from the capital of Brazil, where one could actually see the protesters, many of them carrying the flag of Brazil, running towards, and in hundreds really, running towards the National Congress. They in fact were able to come to the green room, as it's called, that is the area that it's called, which is very close or located outside the lower house of the Congress's chambers. That is what in fact has been pointed out to the media personnel there. What was also seen and really unfortunate that something like this was the Brazil was a witness to something like this rather. The entire floor of the that entire area of the Congress, which the protesters could in fact enter, or the supporters rather of Jair Bolsonaro could enter, was flooded. That's because the sprinkler system was activated as they tried to set fire to the carpet. Meanwhile, they also broke the barricades as they moved towards the presidential palace. And that's not all. They even reached the Supreme Court, where there were some visuals that came in of shattered glass windows that could be seen. This kind of rampage went on for a couple of hours before the security forces could get all the protesters out of the way and get the city in order, were also able to take over the three important buildings where the supporters of Jair Bolsonaro were running riot. And now 400 people have been arrested, and President Lula da Silva has said that strict action is going to be taken against these fascist forces, is how he called or described them. In fact, he said that not only will he come down hard on the protesters, but also the conspirators behind this entire saga that unfolded. Meanwhile, Jair Bolsonaro himself, who is at the moment, interestingly, in the United States, said that he condemned this sort of violence. But there was some bit of whataboutery as well in his tweet, and I'll quickly read it out to you. He said, depredations and invasions of public buildings, as well as those practiced by the left in 2013 and 2017, escaped the rule. So basically what he was trying to do was hit out at the left-leaning Workers' Party, to which Lula belongs, while on the other hand trying to condemn what his supporters had done in Brazil. There was widespread condemnation from across the globe that came through, and specifically what one should notice is the condemnation coming in from US President Joe Biden, who in fact the country that witnessed an insurrection not too long ago, 2 years ago, is when we saw similar scenes breaking out in the United States as well on the 6th of January. And that is why many people, in fact, were comparing the situation, saying that it was eerily similar. Many, in fact, in the US were scathing about how US has set a bad example and exported this sort of insurrection or this kind of feeling in the side that got defeated, that elections are not free and fair. And therefore, we have seen these ugly scenes. Some politicians in the US also saying that Jair Bolsonaro should be deported back to his country. After all, it was his supporters who had run riot. So let's quickly tell you what US President Joe Biden said. He called it an assault on democracy and on the peaceful transfer of power in Brazil. Meanwhile, the UN chief Antonio Guterres also spoke about the issue. He condemned the violence and said that the will of the Brazilian people and the country's institutions must be respected. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also reacted to this kind of violence that was seen, he expressing deep concern over the rioting and the vandalism. Several reactions that came in after these ugly scenes were witnessed in Brazil. But who are these protesters? Yes, they are the supporters of Jair Bolsonaro. And what is their grievance? A number of hardcore supporters of Jair Bolsonaro, who's the former president of Brazil, were part of this group that in fact led this charge against the current president. And their grievance is that, first of all, and probably cannot even be classified as grievance, because their accusation is that this election in Brazil was not fair, and the outcome rather was not fair, something that hasn't been proven. And that is why this is, as the global leaders have pointed out, means to overturn the current government there, and an act that clearly needs to be categorized as, Lula da Silva says, one that is of fascist forces trying to overturn the decision taken by the public, the larger public. Now, the resentment amongst Jair Bolsonaro supporters was there to be seen, and that is why many believe that this is not a protest that has happened spontaneously, and that there could have been some amount of preparation that has gone to it. And that is why you heard Lula da Silva talk about how he is going to come down hard even on the conspirators. Well, I'll quickly also take you through how the police tried to bring calm to the city and be able to arrest the situation that was fast unfolding into a very, very ugly situation. They fired tear gas and were able to bring the situation under control. They said that they had all the buildings that these protesters had entered under their control. Quickly taking you through what the Brazilian President Lula da Silva also said, and here I'm quoting him here, reading it out for you. In fact, there is no precedent in the history of our country. There is no precedent for what these people have done, but these people will be punished. We are going to find out who are the financiers of these vandals who went to Brasilia. We are going to find the financiers, and they will pay with the force of law for their irresponsible, undemocratic gesture, this gesture of vandals and fascists. So this is clearly the sentiment that exists currently, as Lula da Silva, in fact, had taken over, and as the swearing in took place a few days ago, there was this sense that violence could break out. There was this doubt in the minds of people even at that time. But the violence happened belatedly. It did happen, and it was eerily reminiscent of what was seen in America when Trump supporters had gone on a rampage, an insurrection, an infamous episode in the democracy and the history of the United States. Now, Brazil, in fact, has also become one of those countries which has had to witness these kind of ugly and terrible scenes being called an assault on democracy.